Okay, so market research is the first step to decide whether a business makes any sense. And there are four key questions that market research is designed to answer. The first one is, who is my key customer? If you're thinking about making a baby sling, you know who your key customer is. But often there is more than one key customer segment, and you really want to identify as clearly as you can who your key customers are, because that will tell you how you can reach them when it comes time to market to them. Okay. Second key question, what product or service do they want from me? And this is obviously also critical, and we'll be talking about the methods that you'll use to answer this question. Third key question, how much are they willing to pay? Right? And you may have multiple products and or services, and you sort of need to figure this out for each of the types of product or service you might be offering. I often use the example of someone who wants to do a smoothie business. So you can have basic smoothies, and then maybe you've got smoothies with protein. And what sort of price difference should there be between those? You really need to ask your customers how much they're willing to pay to add 30 grams of protein to a smoothie. The fourth question, less important for local businesses like what you're proposing, but how big is the market? But even for your business, you really want to know, what is the market area that I can draw from? Can I bring in people from Ocala? Can I bring in people from High Springs? How far will people be willing to travel in order to participate in the experience that you're proposing? So those are the four key questions. And the good news is there's only three activities we need to do in order to answer these questions. The first one is top-down market research. The second one is competitor research. And the third one is bottom-up market research. So let's start with top-down. Most of the top-down research is done online, often with different types of products or services. There may already be an existing industry. And so if you can figure out what your NAICS code is, that's North American Industry Classification System, if you can figure out your NAICS code, we can often pull a report from the IBIS database. And those are high-level reports issued for many different business types in the country. And we have access to those through the University of Florida library system. Okay. But as you look online, there are all kinds of different ways you can get this top-down information. Um, Top-down information includes how many establishments are there doing this type of business in the country. It often includes what sort of growth rate have we seen in the past 5 years for these businesses, and probably will include a projection of what the growth rate for these types of businesses might be in the next couple of years. It often has information about, here's how many employees are in a typical business of this type, and here's the typical amount of revenue that the business receives per employee, and maybe the total revenue for the business, average revenue for each of these businesses. And sometimes that top-down information can include more specific granular information about a location. So many of the businesses that are listed in the IBIS database have reports that are national, but they might also have state reports. And so there are a lot of state reports for the state of Florida that give you more specific information about our local area.
Okay.
The top-down stuff is really important if you're thinking about doing an online business or any type of business that might be national, if you're doing national consulting, or even selling t-shirts where you might be able to sell nationally, because that gives you some information about how widespread your business might be, and where else you might be able to pull in some clients. The second type of market research is competitor research. I think this one's the most fun, honestly, although the third type's pretty fun too. So what I typically recommend is that you make a spreadsheet, and down the left side, you're going to list the products and services that you offer and the features associated with those products and services. And then the next column down will be all about your business. And you'll put little check marks in the column. You might also put, for a certain type of experience, maybe you'll put projected price for that experience. If you're going to be charging $20 an hour or $20 a night, you can put that type of information in there. And then the next few columns are going to be for competitors' business that is similar to yours. And so you mentioned that you think there are about 4,000 of these types of businesses across the country.
No,
No?
it's a $4 billion industry.
Okay. So it's a large industry. So you should be able to find competitors to see what they do. And, for what you're talking about, you might want to know, what's the square footage size of their particular venue, um, that type of thing. And all of this information goes in that spreadsheet. And so if you've got a feature, whatever that feature happens to be, maybe you're doing an escape room theme, um, and somebody else isn't doing an escape room theme, one of your competitors, you can just put a no in that box. Or maybe you put a yes, but an explanation about, but they charge $75 per person and we only charge $45 per person. Um, you want as much information in the spreadsheet as you can, because this spreadsheet frequently turns into your first piece of marketing literature. It's how you can explain who you are to your potential customer and how you differentiate yourself from your competitor. It's a really useful piece of set of information on this document. The other thing that this document can often tell you is what other people are doing and what they're charging for it. That gives you an idea of what the market will bear. Now, obviously, if you find a competitor in New York City, that's not really comparable to Gainesville. So in your case, if you can sort of focus on college towns to, Charlottesville, Virginia, Asheville, North Carolina, um, what's that little town in North Carolina where uh, there's university towns all over the place. If you can find a town that's similar in size and this business in that size town, those are the ones that you want to focus on. And you can call the owners. If you're not a direct competitor, most people want to be helpful. And so you can literally call the owner and say, I'm thinking of doing this idea in Gainesville, Florida. And would you mind talking to me for a little bit about your experience setting up your business? And what problems did you encounter? And what's really worked well for you and what hasn't worked well for you. So you can get quite granular with some of this competitor information. Make
That
sense?
sounds like fun. I think you're right. That sounds like a lot of fun because ours is going to be so different than everything else. It's going to be really fun to be like, yep, and we do that, and we do that, and we do that.
I love your enthusiasm. I can't wait to
Always.
see your competitor document.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
So
And Jeff,
this
Jeff, I wish I would have met you 12 years ago before I opened my first business. Actually, longer than that, because I had one failed business. I learned the hard way. I called it my complimentary MBA degree that I don't actually have, but that
you
I got from
you know what?
trial and error.
There's trial and error is a valid form of market research. It just happens to be a little more expensive than doing it in advance.
It
You can
was.
spend a lot of money trying to figure out exactly what it is that your customers want,
Mhm.
or you can try this particular method. So I really do. I would prefer to see people put a little bit of sweat equity in up front and be able to make an informed decision up front. And we'll talk about pro formas, the income statement projections in just a minute.
Mhm.
The third type of market research is bottom up market research. And this is where you actually talk to your potential customers to get a good understanding of what products or service they want from you and how much they're willing to pay. And so it's this can be done almost anywhere. If you create a set of fairly open-ended questions and put them on a sheet of paper, 1 through 5 or 1 through 10, whatever it is, and then down at the bottom, make sure you've got room to capture people's names, phone numbers, and email addresses. And then you take those sheets of paper off with you on a clipboard and you go to a music festival and you just corner somebody. Hey, my name's Angela. You know, my name's Jessica. I'm thinking about opening something like this. Would you be willing to just spend 5 minutes with me to answer a few questions about what you think about the idea? And the key thing to keep in mind with this type of research people generally want to be helpful.
Mhm.
And so you kind of have to take what they say with a grain of salt, right? And so I'm going to go back to my smoothie example. Oh, I'm thinking about doing a smoothie business. Do you buy smoothies now? What's your favorite flavor? What kind of flavor do you think you would like to try? Do you like heat? Would something with cayenne pepper or jalapenos be of interest to you? Um, do you do you think you might be interested in additives in your smoothie? What kind of additives are you interested in? Oh, you like protein and you like acai berries. What do you think is a reasonable price to charge for adding those to a smoothie? What sizes smoothies do you think make sense? Should I offer a small and a large? Is three sizes better? How much do you think a 12-ounce smoothie should cost? What do
Oh
you
my
think about it?
God.
You can go on and on with this kind of stuff. You really can. Okay. So when you capture this information on that sheet of paper, when you're all done, you want to say to them, hey, can I get your information so I can let you know when we open up our business? And um, and again, you kind of have to take this with a grain of salt. If 100 people, if you talk to 100 people and all 100 say, oh yeah, I'd come and I'd spend $25 for an hour in your facility, it's not going to be 100 people. It might be 20 people, right? Nonetheless, if it turns out that you need financing for your business, and I can help you with all of the pieces associated with an SBA loan, for example, when you go to a bank with a business plan that says, I spoke to 200 people and here's what I found out. And here's the demographics of the people. And you can just write down on the sheet of paper after you're done talking with someone, you know, male 20s. You can capture some demographic information. Um, you go to the bank. I've spoke to 200 people. Here's a breakdown of the demographics. I've got, 20% said they would absolutely come to something like this and felt like $25 an hour was a reasonable price point. We spoke to 200 people, but in the demographic group that looks like it will be my customer base in the Gainesville area, there are 14,000 people. And, uh, you know, based on what I've spoken to people, they thought they might be willing to attend this with their friends once a month. We got 14,000 people. Now you can take this information, and what it allows you to do, it informs the pro forma, that forward-looking income statement, because the hardest thing to figure out as you build out a business plan is what your revenues are going to be, right? That pro forma document is a month by month forward looking statement of what you think your revenues will be and what you think your expenses will be. And when you have the information about who your key customer is and you know them very well, or your key customer segments, as the case may be, and when you have good information about what sort of attendance you can expect, what sort of services or products or features they're looking for, what they're willing to pay, how often they're willing to return, when you have that information, we can put together the revenue projections in a pro forma statement. Okay. Putting together the expense projections is the next step. That's much easier than the revenue projections. You can contact an insurance agent because you're going to need an insurance. You can contact a lawyer to find out how much it'll cost to do your waivers. You can, contact real estate agents to try and understand what it's going to cost for you to get real estate. You can contact, there are a number of music venues, everything from Heartwood Soundstage to what is that? The warehouse over on Main Street. I can't remember what it's called, where they do music stuff. You might be able to rent those places for events, right? Maybe it makes sense to do this on an event basis, and you do one a month, and you put up a bunch of posters around town, and you let all of the people that you've spoken to know, and you build a following that way, as opposed to just going right out and renting your own place, which is going to cost.
Oh, I love that idea. My background is in marketing and event planning. So I know how to run events. I know how to market events. I know how to get people excited and show up for things. Brick and mortar, I've only owned one brick and mortar business, and that was the one that failed. So
Brick and mortar it's tough.
it's
It
intense.
really is tough because of the overhead costs are just so high, right? Whereas well, I've got ideas percolating in the back of my head already, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. So
It's for us
what
to.
kind what kind of questions do you guys have about what market research, how to do market research and what it's designed to accomplish?
I think you did a really great job of explaining it, honestly. I feel like this is fun. This is going to be really fun. I'm excited to do it.
Okay. How else can I help you today?
One of the questions that we were wondering was about like filing it. Do we just file as an LLC to start getting paperwork started? We're like, are we doing a nonprofit? Are we doing like, can we do a social business? Like in Florida, I don't know if we could do it because it is absolutely a social business.
Right.
But I don't know how to go about registering a social business or how it's different. So I was wondering if you could
Well, let's
explain
start.
more.
So we start with the basics, which is the market research and development of a pro forma. That after we have that pro forma, that's the point where we make that go, no go decision,
Okay.
right? Because you're going to look at that pro forma and you're going to see one of three or four things somewhere in the range. Up at the best possibility is, wow, you've got something. There's a groundswell of support for you. The amount of revenue you think you can generate, reasonably generate, and your numbers have to be reasonable and they have to be defensible. But it looks like the amount of money you can generate is pretty good. It looks like your expenses are fairly low. So it looks like you can be profitable doing this business, and it's not going to take, you know, 60 hours a week to get the thing running, right? So that's the best possible scenario that you're going to run into. And then you run into sort of the questionable scenarios where, yeah, I think the business can make a profit, but I'm probably not going to make a profit the first year. I'm probably going to lose money. Sometime in the second year, I'll break even. Maybe by the third year, I'll make a profit. But I think sort of we're going to max out at maybe, let's just say $40,000 a year profit. And in order to get there, I'm going to have to put in 60-hour weeks. Maybe I'm better off either figuring out another idea or getting a job somewhere, right? It those are the that's it doesn't necessarily make sense unless you're really, really passionate about it and you don't
Right.
mind putting in the sweat equity to get there. And then of course at the bottom end, you've got a business where the numbers just don't pencil out. Okay. And so
Like
that and honestly, that's the most likely scenario. But the good thing about that is now you sort of know what doesn't work. And so you go back to your market research and you start to tweak your idea a little bit. Well, can I do a little tweak here? And will that make the business work out, or a little tweak there? It's way better than starting a business and just losing money each event that you try and put on, and then trying to figure out what went wrong and how you might do better.
Right.
They're both market research. One is a lot less expensive than the other, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
once you make that go decision, that's the point. Get back in touch with me, or well, I'll tell you now what the next step is. If you're going to make a go decision, for what you guys are doing, you really have to protect yourself. So that means probably a limited liability company, an LLC.
Okay.
Um, if you're doing a multi-member LLC, which just because I'm speaking to two of you, it looks like what this is. Um, there's a number of caveats and concerns. With a single member LLC, you can just go onto sunbiz.org and you can file the paperwork. I can walk you through it. It's just like $180 or something like that. It's a piece of cake. But with a multi-member LLC, you really have to have an operating agreement that specifies what happens if. And one of the things that I would honestly strongly counsel against is a 50-50 split of business. Now, you can do that, but what it means is if you're deadlocked, you have a problem. And so what some people do for businesses that are 50-50 splits is they designate some third party to break ties in case you have an argument. And I do serve in that capacity for a number of others. I don't, I can't, I do not charge for it. Scores code of ethics prevents me from benefiting financially from working with our clients in any way. But if you want to go in that direction, that's fine. Or if there's someone else that the two of you trust, Eli is also a score mentor, but he's not your score mentor. So he might be a better neutral choice. Mark also I have a lot of respect for, and you guys may know other people that you think are appropriate.
Thank you.
It's a good idea to have a lawyer look at an operating agreement. And I know that this is an extra cost. You can ask ChatGPT to do it, but you're not going to get nearly as good a result. The lawyers know what they're doing and they get paid for a reason. And so the operating agreement often has language in there with respect to the 5 Ds, death, disability, uh, disease. If someone wants to pull out, how do you, if one of you decides, all right, I'm leaving the area and I really don't feel like I can be part of this anymore, how do we go about a split like that? The remaining partner needs to buy out the other partner. What should the value of that purchase be? All of those types of questions are often answered as part of that operating agreement. Okay.
Okay.
So, yep, setting up the LLC is not hard. Um, in pretty much every state, you have to have a registered agent. And if either one of you lives in the state of Florida, either one of you can be the registered agent. It's just a mailing address where the Department of State can mail you whatever they need to. And also where you will receive all kinds of garbage mail once you register your LLC. Oh, you need to have this poster. Oh, you can pay us to do X or Y or Z for you. You can throw all of those away. Most of them are just garbage, or you can print out a little sheet of paper with whatever regulations are required to be posted to show employees or subcontractors, et cetera.
Okay.
Um, so it's really not difficult. Once you've gone to Sunbiz and set up your LLC, the second step is to go to the IRS's website and get an EIN. Again, that's 100% free. You just have to make sure you check the right boxes. I was just working with someone and they checked the box that their new company was a partnership and not an LLC, and now they got a nightmare to deal with because getting in touch with the IRS to fix that kind of stuff is a nightmare. So you get your EIN, and then the next thing you'll do is you'll each take a little bit of money based on your operating agreement or your ownership percentages, whatever, and you'll open up a commercial checking account at the bank of your choice. You can almost always find fairly inexpensive commercial checking accounts. I hate paying bank fees. So, most banks have like a $500 minimum. You'll probably want to put in a little bit more than $500 so that you've got free checking. And I also recommend that you get either a debit card or a credit card associated with the business, because one of the ways that you protect yourself from liability is by treating the business like a business. And the best way to do that is every penny of revenue you get gets deposited into the business checking account. And when you have expenses, you pay for them from the business checking account. If you end up paying for something on a personal credit card, that's fine. You want to reimburse yourself and you just want to make sure that the expense is well documented. Okay. The other ways that you protect yourself are by getting appropriate insurance. And so every business, every small business needs a team. I am officially a member of your team. You get that one for free. However, an insurance agent should be a member of your team, or an insurance broker. There are a number of them in town. You should talk to a couple of brokers and decide who you want to work with, because you will need insurance for this business. Okay. You've got to have liability insurance for this business. Other members of your team include a business attorney, and I think you're going to need that too. Although maybe if you talk to some competitors in some other cities, they would be willing to share their waivers with you. Just keep in mind that if someone does that, it's very, very kind because they've probably paid for it. And if you get that from someone down in Miami, then you've got something that will probably stand the test in Florida. It was probably done by a Florida attorney who knows the Florida laws and regulations. So if you end up getting that from someone in Nashville, North Carolina, you probably want to run it by an attorney in Florida. Okay. All right. So that's the startup process. Um, and you don't want to put any pennies in until you really know you've got a concept that has a strong likelihood of success.
And so
Also,
I,
yeah, keep in mind the the best plans will fail if they're not well executed, and sometimes the worst plans succeed if they're well executed. And my example, of course, is the pet rock, right? I mean, how that succeeded, I have no idea, and yet it was effectively marketed and it was a success.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's so true.
that's why I never poo-poo anyone's business idea because my crystal ball is very murky.
Right, right. Yeah, who would have seen that coming? Awesome. Yeah, this is very, very helpful. And I
Okay.
feel like I have a lot. I don't feel like I have any questions. Angela, do you have anything you want to ask?
I don't think so. Really, the market research, some of this information is completely new to me, even though I've been an entrepreneur for 11 years, almost 11 years now. But I didn't do any of that. I have started now three businesses, just lots of trial and error.
Yep.
I've never actually done market research, which some of this I could still go back and do for my current business, which is a
E-
professional business. It would
every business should be doing this. You need to know who your customers are, how to reach them, and exactly what they want from you. And if you do it on a continuous basis, you will, it is much less likely you'll be caught by surprise by some new trend in the market, that sort of thing. People think that, and most business plans include a section on marketing, and marketing is absolutely valuable, but I would much rather see the section on marketing first discuss market research because I don't believe you can market effectively if you haven't done the market research.
you don't even know if there are people that are interested and willing to pay for what you're
That
offering.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Like that.
All right, I'm going to stop recording and